Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in again. This is John Hallett with the John Hallett Podcast, and I've got Jamie and Josh sitting with me today, and we're just talking.
Want to say hi?
See, Josh is way faster than you, Jamie.
It's okay. I was going to wait till you were done talking.
So we're talking a little bit about the martial arts Krav Maga journey today. So how did you get started and find us, Jamie?
Through my fiance, Braden, Coach Braden, actually. We met at the gym at 24 Hour Fitness, and he had nothing but high respect about this place and, growing up pretty much being here. And then we ran into you at that Oktoberfest that one time. You guys had a booth.
I remember.
Yeah, and then that's when he decided to come back, and then you and Pam at the time and Braden all convinced me to get Bryson into it. So Bryson was 3.5 at the time when he started. And then I just watched for a couple years, and then COVID hit, and I came to the Project Fit side. And then I was like, this Krav stuff looks pretty cool. Plus, I was like, I can't rely on my 4-year-old to defend me, right? In the street. Or, even Braden, he's not with me. So I was like, I am going to start this journey. I want to know how to defend myself and my family. And
yeah, I think that's so important for women to be able to be mama bear and be able to protect, because dad isn't always there, especially, in the times we live in now. You might need those skills yourself. So I think it's just so important. I can remember when you started, and I was like, you've been watching classes, and you gave the typical mom response, well, not really, I've been on my phone. And I'm like, you should know, you've already heard how many front kick lessons, but you gave the typical parent excuse of like, I'm not really paying attention. I'm like, you should. You could get something out of your kids' class. Not all that different sometimes, especially if we're talking about technique-wise. So,
yeah.
How about you, Josh? How did you get started early on in martial arts, was it? Or
Well, I was in my early 20s. I had a friend who was like, have you ever done martial arts? And I was like, no, I hadn't really done much. I'd watched some friends, and I had friends at school whose parents were martial arts, so I would instructors, and I would just kind of go and watch them. My parents would never really pay for anything, so everything I got I had to learn from either cleaning people's floors or trying to earn something. And I was a young kid at the time. By my 20s, I finally decided that I needed to learn something. So I started looking into martial arts, decided on Kung Fu because I'd watched tons of Kung Fu movies growing up as a kid. Did it for a couple of years, and then I really got out of it. I just kind of stepped away. And I was really kind of career-oriented. Life was... 9/11 kind of happened at the same time that I was doing that stuff, and did it for a while and stepped away. And now in my later half of life, I decided that I needed to do something again because it's easy to get soft. And a lot of people don't realize that martial arts is a perishable skill. And I hadn't done it for almost 18 years-ish. And when I decided I needed to do something again, so I started cruising the old internet, and I lived in Castle Rock, and I was trying to actually decide between a few places. One was Aikido, one was Jiu-Jitsu, and the other was Krav Maga. And after doing some comparisons of what I thought, I landed on Krav Maga because it was something that everybody uses the word practical, but it was something that I could apply in more situations. Because Jiu-Jitsu, once you get to the ground, you can't keep shrimp walking and stuff with your back on pavement. And Aikido's cool, but unless... I don't know. I just didn't know enough about it.
Yeah, and it definitely is a bigger learning curve than the practicality of
Krav
Maga for people to become proficient in it, and it's well-rounded. Sure. But what I really like about it is you came back to it. I always tell people so what? You've missed 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. 10 years, right? Coming back to it because it is perishable. Oh, even in my own training, I notice if I miss a week of sparring. It doesn't have to be hard. Like last night's sparring was light 20% touch sparring, nothing hard, but it's seeing punches come at you that I'm like, you get rusty. Yeah. After, doesn't matter how long you've trained, you get rusty.
I'm not even in the sparring section yet, and I realize that it's coming at me faster than I was used to when I was younger. As you age, that's the thing I noticed is that things seem faster. I don't recover as well, and it takes me longer to learn it.
Yeah.
But, I had a decent background in it, but now I know I have to get back into it because I'm at that point where I got to keep the body going, too. And there's plenty of conditioning that you guys have been offering, at least our school's been offering. And you know, it was just time. I just had to find something that fit for me. That's what I found here. I found a fit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a hard journey, I think, when you walk in the door. I think that's always hard of getting started and being able to, even like Jane, like switching sides. Like, I was in here for fitness, but I see this other stuff and I can see that it's practical, but it's still a little intimidating no matter what. You know, I think we're really like most gyms, I say, out there are beginner friendly. Otherwise, they wouldn't have students unless they're in some super tough demographic and they have a ton of people that want to be fighters. Most gyms are extremely beginner friendly, but it's still intimidating to start the martial arts, and that journey just starts with walking in the door, getting started, and kind of overcoming doing that. Like me personally, like when I found martial arts, it was in my local health club on Nantucket Island. Yeah. And, you know, the weight room was on one side, the aerobics room was on the other side, and it was a converted racquetball studio. So you're pretty much in 2 racquetball studios, kind of size, pretty narrow rooms. And I started this Taekwondo class, and it was, I'm going to have to stand there in, and Taekwondo is the dobak, but most people call it the white pajamas. And I had to stand out in front of that class after being, in the weight room and lifting. And now I go in the locker room and change into my white belt and my uniform and getting made fun of by the other guys in the weight room. Like, oh, you do that, and, nice pajamas, the typical stuff. And they were all good. They were all buddies. But, it's that good-natured hazing, but you knew you were going to have to face it. Sure. And starting something new and being that newbie, like, oh my gosh, I was out of control. Like,
that was the biggest thing that scared me, was getting back into it, because I was like, people are going to see how bad I've gotten. I mean, there's, that scared me. Yeah. As a person, and I was just like, you know what, I've just got to do it. It was like the first time I didn't really know much going into it other than what people had taught me.
Yeah, I can relate. I used to shadow box in the corner where, like, the coach could see me. Because I was just like, shy at first. I'm like, what do I do?
Everybody starts new. I mean, I had guys then, as my progression from that room, that's actually the first place I started teaching Krav Maga years later. Yeah. So I would have guys look through the little window. I mean, it was just a one little rectangle, probably 12 by 12 window into there once they closed the door. And I'd see guys looking in and checking it out. And sometimes be like, hey, you interested in my class? Sure. And so many of them, and I had a 80% female class at that point. So many of the guys told me they didn't want to start because they didn't want to look stupid. And I'm like, here it is, buddy. Yeah. You can look stupid in the class. Nobody cares. I got to tell you. Yeah. Everybody else is thinking, I'm just trying my best. We always, try to have good people in our classes. I'm like, you can look dumb in my class, or you can look dumb in front of your lady, your wife, your kids.
Or in a fight.
That's what I'm saying. In a real fight, you get your butt kicked in front of your wife. Yeah. Like, that's where do you want to look stupid? Out on the street or in a gym where everybody there is there to get themselves better? And our community here at RMSDF is help the community get better, not be like, oh man, you're uncoordinated.
Right. You don't need this.
I mean, we all laughed aside on Jamie. I mean, especially her fiance. Right.
Actually, Jamie.
Maybe her ex-fiance now. Like, he made fun of her. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally making that up.
Wow. I'm actually impressed by Jamie.
I'm totally making that up. Totally, but if it sounds like him, he probably did it aside from me.
Actually, I'm impressed by Jamie's strength. That's the other thing. Is people work out and they think that strength is replacement for skill, and it's not. Because I don't care how strong you are. I mean, Jamie could kick just about anybody. But if she was to get into a fight, I would be supremely confident in her ability to protect herself.
Yeah, especially in the self-defense.
Yeah.
Especially, I think that's a confusion. It was something actually I was thinking about on a whole, bigger topic or podcast on, the difference between self-defense and fighting. Yeah. Like, if I just attack Jamie, I'm not ready for her as a bigger guy. Yeah. I'm not ready for that initial defend, counter, and counter again, and counter again that we teach in Krav Maga. That is just overwhelming force. Even though I'm bigger, she's going to hit me by surprise. I'm going to be hurt. And she shouldn't let up. As the woman, I'm like, always telling the women,
just keep going.
Don't be the movie.
Yeah.
Don't be the damsel in distress that, like, all of a sudden I don't know why, I mean, well, I know why for the movies, but they just portray the woman. She hits him once or twice, and then for the, dramatic effect, the guy gets back in the fight. I'm like, don't let up. As a woman, do not let up in that self-defense scenario, because now you are in a fight against a bigger, stronger person. Now, generally speaking, the bigger, stronger person is going to have a big advantage in a fight versus a self-defense scenario.
Sure.
So you've got to capitalize as a female, as a just self-defense. You've just got to hit and hit hard and not let up, because you don't want to fight a bigger. I'm like, I don't want to fight a bigger, stronger guy. Like, they have an advantage. Like, I don't want to fight. I'm just doing this for self-defense. And if that guy, attacks me, he's not initially ready for that.
No, it's not. That's true. That's what I tell all my ladies in my women's class is just don't stop hitting. So I say the same thing.
Yeah.
You can't hit enough as a woman.
Right. And what good is having a bunch of strength if you're a guy if you don't know how to use it? What's the
there's
point
tons of guys that are strong, and you're like, you just don't have any technique. You're just trying to muscle it as the guy. I mean, guys all the time muscling their technique.
Yeah. And
I'm like, it'd be a lot easier if you learn the technique. You're just trying to have strength.
And that can work 10% of the time, 20% of the time. I don't know, right? But technique works 100% of the time. Because it's fantastic. You've learned it and your body remembers it. What's the point of all that strength if you can't use it? Yeah.
I mean, I had a really big guy in class, and of course, like, everybody's nobody wants to get hit by him. I, certainly didn't. I remember one day, God, this is going to be like 15 years ago. It was a long time ago. It was on our building on Wilcox Street, and I just went, I'm 300 pounds. I'm 300 pounds. I'm 300 pounds, and I'm going to choke this guy from the front technique. And, he initially went into muscling the technique, but he didn't address the danger. So he's still, and now I'm choking him. I'm seriously choking him. Because I'm like, and then he kneed me in the groin. Like, kind of his Krav Maga panic, which was good, but it just made me mad. Yeah. And that's where, like, a lot of women, like, just knee him in the groin. Oh, just knee them in the groin? No. Right there, that's a big mistake in that lesson. Knee them in the groin and knee them, he like, follow up, but he kneed me in the groin. I mean, this is a big Division I football player. Like, but I'm 300 pounds. I'm 300 pounds. Your mindset. And he kneed me in the groin, and I choked him even harder. And I think I stopped, and he was, and I'm like, what was wrong? Yeah, you're choking me. I'm like, I know I'm choking. You're just muscling it. And he's like, oh, sorry about that knee. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you were wearing a cup, though. I'm like, no, I'm teaching the class. I wasn't wearing a cup. And he's like, you choked me harder. I'm like, I know, because you made me mad. And to prove to you that knee strike isn't necessarily going to stop somebody. A determined attacker, somebody that's been hit in the groin before, that's raped women, and maybe, gotten kicked or kneed by somebody that took a, rape prevention course and just kicked him in the groin. He can power through that. Fighters can power through that.
When that adrenaline's kicking, you realize how many hits you can take before you feel it. You don't feel it until after it's over.
Yeah, I mean, it can.
It's kind of scary. You got big dudes and
can hurt in a second, or
Don't get me wrong. There's big, strong women out there too. I mean, there's some women out there that'll surprise you with their size and strength.
Oh yeah.
So I mean,
I love having those women in class. I can think of one this woman took out this guy in this headlock, and he couldn't escape it. He's like, whoa, you're really strong. And I'm like, don't underestimate your opponent just because you're training with a woman tonight. I think she was like nationally ranked in her age division for some like endurance racing. I forget what exactly sport she did, but yeah, she was really good, great athlete. I can't remember her name, but she was really strong. But she had this guy in the headlock, and he couldn't get out. And of course, he was trying to muscle it, and she was like, "You're not doing it." And like, he's not doing the technique. He's just trying to be strong. And she was pretty darn. She was strong, and he was not, some 230-pound beast of a man that could muscle his way out of. She was probably only 120 pounds, is my guess. She wasn't strong. Big. She was just strong.
Right. And that goes back to my point: is that strength is no good without technique.
Yeah.
I mean, you can try all day, and that's what I came back for. Is I knew my technique was, I lost a lot of it You know, I'd lost my flexibility. I'd lost my youth. I lost a lot, you know? And I was like, oh my gosh, it's time. I got to do something.
Yeah, you've got to, you know, there's no, and who cares? I mean, I tell people, like, yeah, you've lost a little bit of vision. You're getting older. I mean, I've got, if you're watching on YouTube, I've got my glasses on now because Josh is a whole lot better looking when I have my glasses and he's a little foggy there.
Right.
So, you know, like,
I've never been called good looking by my coach, but he's
I'm
called
gonna
me
throw a
slow.
compliments.
He's had a few of those talks where he's like, "You'll get it. It's okay." You know, but it's been a lot of fun, man. I don't regret a single moment being here. You know, that's the best part, and the people I've met, and the community that you guys have built here, which is really nice. You know,
Yeah, community. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, Jamie, while I'm thinking of it, you know, so you've been here longer than Josh. How long have you been here?
Including Project Fit or just doing Krav?
It doesn't matter. I mean, Krav, you're martial arts training, fitness. I mean, they're so sometimes similar.
Being here training about 2 years in Krav Maga. Even longer if you want to count me being here because my son's
Watching
there.
your son's classes and
Yes.
not getting anything out of it. So what troubles have you, you know, as somebody that's doing, you know, martial arts for 2 years, what are some of the things that you've kind of now passed some of that beginner stuff, and what are some of the stuff you're struggling with now as kind of that intermediate level student?
I think one of the biggest things, and they kind of go together, is thinking I can't do it. So when I first started, I was like, wow, this is really good. A little overwhelming, you know, technique sloppy and stuff. I was like, I don't think I can do it, but I'm going to keep trying. I want to get better. And now you reach, or, you know, I passed some of that beginner stuff where I'm like, oh, I did it. Right. But now I'm entering intermediate and it's back to, oh, geez, I have so much to learn. I don't know if I can do it. So it's almost like a little bit of discouragement, if that's how I can say it. But I just keep pushing through. I'm just like, I'll get it. I just have to keep doing it.
Yeah, it's just put one foot in front of the other and you'll get there. If you stop the journey, you're never going to get there.
And just like today, I was like, I'm having an off day. And you were even like, well, that's sometimes the days you learn the best. And I was like, I learned so much today.
Yeah, nobody likes to have an off day, but I think like sometimes those bad days, whether it's just hitting a heavy bag or whatever it is, I feel like sometimes there's a lot of growth that comes out of, you know, a bad day, or, you know, growth through discomfort. You know, you go through that stuff, and it's not super easy. Otherwise, everybody out there would be a ninja. You know, if you really want to defend yourself, you know, you want to get good at, you know, even just a particular lift and being able to use your body. You know, activate every muscle in a deadlift. It's super easy. Just pick up the bar. But there's so much more to it than that as you progress through your journey. In fitness, it is so hard. And getting over that hump where I haven't lost the weights, and you're like, you just got to stay on the journey and keep pushing through of knowing. I mean, we started this with Josh going, who's got the scale out? And I'm like, it's me. Yeah. And I was just comparing, I think it was like 58 days ago that I was, let's look and give you some real data. Real data. I'm like, it's like,
my worst day was last week.
So let's see.
Did you gain weight or did you lose weight?
Yeah, and I knew, I started, and you tell people, and it was something I think I wanted to do on one of our, you know, YouTube social media stuff of like, I knew I was kind of getting a little off track in the summer. Okay, you know, this fall of like, you know what, a hamburger with a bun is really good.
Yeah. And I really is.
2 hamburgers. But just from that, and you know, a few other things, like I tell people like Cliff Bars, I love the chocolate peanut butter one, and one is too small, and I can eat 2, and then all of a sudden, this stuff. So here's some like real data over. From 69 days ago, I was 161.5 pounds, and this morning I was 174.8. And then...
But you don't look like you have an ounce of fat on you.
Well, this is my BMI. Was 23.2, now it's 25.1. My body fat was 10.4%, and now it's 12.3. So just being off track for a couple months, it just starts to add up. But who cares? What, a lot of people are like, throw in the towel. I haven't been able to lose the weight. And it's just, you got to make that journey to lose weight just slow and steady, because the piece of chocolate cake has a huge dopamine hit. And it is so
really
hard.
Bad after you're like, why did I do
do,
that?
and I'm like, why? That wasn't worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to look at the chocolate cake and go, it's not worth it. It's not worth it, and that is really hard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're up against the holidays, and everybody's making Rice Krispie treats or brownies or pies and all that stuff.
Or like Buckeyes, my favorite thing that my wife makes, and then going, okay, come on, like you said you were going to get back on track, stick to it, or is it going to be more to overcome to kind of get to my back to my kind of ideal level where I'd like to be at?
Sure.
Or is it going to be a bigger deficit come January because you're like, I don't care.
Yeah.
But, I've got Belize coming up for right after Christmas, and I'm like, I don't want to be fat on the beach.
I gotta have the
beach
beach
ready.
Yeah. It takes a long time to get ready. I mean,
it does. It's not a pill.
It doesn't go on overnight, and it doesn't come off overnight. But I think beginners get really down on themselves, and they see that quick progress, and then now it's going to be a struggle.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So much of life is a struggle. It's not easy, and if ever you got that weight problem, you got to be slow and steady and going for the quick. I lost 20 pounds. It's better to be slow and steady.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good for your health. I mean,
it's better for your health to be taking that weight off slowly versus extremely fast.
Sure. I'm the heaviest I've ever been. I'm 240 pounds. Actually, I think I'm down to 235. I've lost some inches on my waist since I've been here, but my weight's still there. I was lifting weights pretty heavy. Well, that's the mentality. It's like, I put on muscle. Of course I'm going to be heavier, but it's like, how much calories am I eating that I don't need? How much of that is stuff I don't need to even survive? Or, the whole idea that you're hungry, I have to eat something. You don't. I realized.
No, that's like a bad mentality. That was I feel like it was more promoted in the bodybuilding community where, I have to eat every 2 hours to keep my metabolism up. And it's like, no, you actually don't. You got to eat when you're hungry and nourish the body with real food. So
I'm still trying to learn about the intermittent fasting stuff and all that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised how much of this is research. When you want to get seriously into shape and learn martial arts, you have to research what you want to do and set goals,
Yeah.
If you
have
kind of
those what they, smart goals, that you can measure them and that you can obtain them. And those little goals are better than the big one. Like 5 pounds. Awesome, Josh.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, happy. 5. Because I remember you saying, hey, I'm about 40 pounds overweight.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where I'd like to be. So you're just chipping away. You've only been doing classes for a month
or so.
Yeah. So, and just being able to move. I always say, something is better than nothing. Go walk around the neighborhood.
Right.
Get out there and just start moving. Take calls if you can. Moving around the office if you can.
Stand.
Yeah. Stand.
If you work in an office, stand.
If you can be moving around on a phone call,
do it.
I hate the Zoom meeting. Sometimes they're necessary, and you can't be like, I'd rather be on the phone and walking around and talking to somebody kind of old school that way, so I can just be moving versus sitting down.
Sure.
But anything like that, talking to your mom on the phone, just to get up and walk around. Right. Stop sitting on the couch. You move around is going to make a big difference because people are too sedentary these days.
It's so easy. Everything's at my fingertips. I could spend the whole day on the couch, do everything that I need to do for working, and not get up once unless I had to use the bathroom or get something to eat.
Yeah,
and that's the world we've created, and it's kind of it's nice in the fact that everything's at our fingertips. But my body's you'll age so much faster when you're heavier. All those joints that you end up hurting. There's the other thing is that the joints. I realized as I got older through this journey, I'm like, man, I am not as flexible as I used to be. And it hurts.
Yeah. Or people my knees hurt. And I'm like, well, your body wasn't designed to carry that 80 pounds extra.
Right.
Of course your body hurts. I bumped into a guy that said, I tried your class.
Yeah.
And I just thought I was too old and I hurt. But then I realized, like, he ended up going somewhere else with his daughter, unfortunately. But, like, great. At least you stayed on the journey and you found something else to get in shape. But he came to my gym and went, oh, this is too hard. But you're like, yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit. Working, like, you're out of shape.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit. But so does dying early.
Yeah.
So does being out of shape. And, it's like one of those big things with senior citizens. They go in, they have surgery, and they're bedridden, and they lose so much muscle that they probably didn't have to the beginning. Yeah. And it leads to, more complications from that surgery. I think Andrew Huberman has a great episode on that. And, there's some other research of, where I think they clinically call it like sarcopenia, of just that muscle loss as we get older, and how much it leads to problems. It's like where our women, fitness wise, like, well, I don't want to put on muscle. And I'm like, you're losing muscle. You're 40 years old. You're losing muscle. Yeah. You need muscle. You're not going to look like a steroid.
A guy, you're not going to look like a guy,
Yeah. And you're not going to look like the women
would listen.
doing
you don't
steroids.
Produce testosterone like men do. Men gain muscle mass the way they do because of their testosterone production. Women, we have a little bit, but because of the estrogen we produce, it makes us look really toned and lean, and it looks good. You would have to inject, like John, what you were saying, like steroids or testosterone for a woman to look like a man.
Yeah, you're not gonna. I think they get this picture in their head, and you need muscle. Guys have their own problems with fitness, but women definitely, they don't want to. I don't want to get bulky. I'm like, you're not going to get bulky, but still, you need more muscle because everybody's seen the feeble old lady that can't pick up her stuff and needs help with everything from shoveling the driveway to picking up dog food, whatever it may be. You're like, you need muscle, and you're going to live longer if you have muscle. So get in there and pick up some weights and move. That's what I like about our strength and conditioning and our Project Fit class. I'm like, we've really kind of moved the focus to strength and conditioning for longevity. Yeah. And the 20-year-old needs that because, gosh, some of them haven't done anything ever. And they're in really bad shape, and just getting up and doing something. You need it at any age. It's stuff we need, no matter when you want to pick up that journey. It's like, get on that health and fitness and martial arts journey some way. It's going to make you a better person.
I was shocked in my last job was in the corporate world, and people half my age could not do a fifth of the push-ups I could do. Because I can actually do quite a few push-ups, and I was shocked how many people half my age couldn't do that. And I was like, you're the young ones. You're the ones that should be like pushing yourself to see what your body can do. Well, I think it was like I can't remember which Greek philosopher it was, but they, there was said there was responsibility for the youth to figure out how strong their body could be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we lose.
Well, that's true. That's something I was taught in school, right? Like a good scale, especially for beginners to work up to, is we should be able to push and pull our own body weight, right? Sure. So I should be able to do pull-ups and push-ups and stuff. So that's a really good place to start, too. That helps build that strength up.
It's that challenge that we put out there. Just start doing one push-up every day and one sit-up and one squat. Mm-hmm. Hang from a pull-up bar if you get it at home.
Stretch. The other thing is stretch. I realized I had not stretched in a long time. And it really affected the early start here with me. I was like, man, I can't just move like I used to. We were trying to do some ground defense stuff, and I couldn't get my legs to wrap around somebody. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was a little defeated at that moment, but it kind of gave me a new goal. How many times a week can I stretch to get that mobility back? Yeah. And that's the other thing that you guys have been helping me with, is just getting that back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which has been great. It's just feeling it.
I was just talking to JD last night in the gym, one of our longtime members, and he was just saying how much, and I've heard this and that, and I'm like, well, back to Huberman. He's got a great scientific, he's going to give you all the data on it. It's a great episode, but just holding the stretch doesn't have to be painful for a minute or two. Just it's consistently just being in a position that might be a little uncomfortable and just working through any of it, just hanging down and trying to touch your toes.
Yeah.
The
body wants to move.
Basic, if you don't, everything just gets tight. Just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a ton. Just hold a stretch for a minute or two and consistently do it. Otherwise, we all get tight and
then pain, and then I don't want to do anything, and then I'm sedentary again. And
you're watching the news.
Yeah.
Or stick our videos up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Self-promotion there.
I will read
and stretch, hold a position.
Yeah.
Watch something.
Yeah.
Watch a documentary. Use that time if you're going to be doing that. If you can do a little bit of stretching, you're going to be so much better off.
Oh, you'll just feel better when you wake up in the morning.
Absolutely.
When you get out of bed, you don't have to spend as much time getting limber. Or maybe that's the time to start your stretching. It's just during those times. Mm-hmm. If I had all the answers, I wouldn't be coming to you guys for help, right? And I think that's what people do is they let their ego get in the way, and they think I'll be able to do it on my own. And I realized I exercised on my own. And I realized I was not doing enough on my own because I didn't have anyone sitting there saying, you could do more. John and Gene always push me. It's yeah, that's great. Now go to failure. I just did 40 push-ups. Great, do 50. Mm-hmm. You don't push me until I can't do anymore. And at home, I would just do my sets, and I was done. Right? Mm-hmm. I do my 3 sets of 20 or whatever, and you're 60 push-ups is like a warm-up. Go until you can't do anymore. The sit-ups and all that stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, speaking of self-promotion, this podcast is brought to you guys by Rocky Mountain Self-Defense and Fitness. If you mention you heard this episode that Josh lost 5 pounds and call us with Josh lost 5, we're going to give you $20 off in the month of December 2022, depending on when you're listening to this. And it is also brought to you by ClearSky-Online.com, our online store for clothes. That store is 30% off always, the suggested retail price from Printful, so you can always save. You don't need any code there. We've brought that price down to make it easy for our members because we got sick of giving people codes all the time to the online store that they forgot. So I decided to take the retail price and knock off 20 to 30% on just about, every item is knocked down 20 to 30%. So
shop away, have fun.
Shop. It's the Christmas season.
So, hey, I do want to ask you questions, though. How long have you been doing Krav? 20 plus years.
20,
plus Taekwondo
20,
and all that stuff, right? So
20, I did Taekwondo for 5 years, so it's getting 25 plus.
You've got
probably.
experience.
I had a couple of years there kind of in between Taekwondo and Krav Maga that we kind of had my training in my basement.
Sure.
With a couple of the guys from the Taekwondo class that we wanted to do our own thing, and we're kind of boxing and kind of trying to be practical from what we had learned and mixed up. One of the guys, my first Krav Maga assistant, Jack Marshall, I had mentioned on a podcast, and I had totally blanked on his last name. So I've had too many Jacks around. That Jack was a boxer out of the South End in Boston, and we took what he knew from all his boxing experience, and he also was a bouncer at some of the worst places around the South End of Boston. So he had a lot of practical stuff and experience, and even that. And I found Krav Maga and went to Jack, and I'm like, hey, you need 2 people for this.
Sure.
Back then with Krav Maga Worldwide, you needed, 2 people. So you went back and had somebody to train with and somebody to remember what you might have forgotten and that type of stuff. So I can't remember how many years it was kind of in between Taekwondo and finding Krav Maga, but I was still training kind of on my own, always kind of working out.
I want to ask you a question about that now. So it's easy for me to find someone to train with because there's plenty of people at my skill level at the class, right? Jamie can probably find somebody to train with because there's a lot of people at her skill level. You being 4th degree, how do you find somebody at your skill level to train?
Let's take it back a bunch of years because I've got some great guys and girls around the gym now that have gotten to a higher level. When I was starting out, and even just waves of how your gym would go, that it was hard to, be with somebody your own level. And I remember one particular testing that a guy was like, who do you train with? And I'm like, my students. And he went, your students must be really good. And I'm like, all right, there's some good ones, but nobody like a black belt that's been training for years, or a martial arts school owner that might have done karate. And, I've trained with guys that I've been training since I was 6 or 8 years old, or, some of them, I started at 4. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the amount of experience you have in martial arts is crazy. So I would train with students. Sure. And I'm like, it's like, do something like, everybody, I'm above everybody. I always did stuff with students. Like, I got nobody to train with. Like, all right, I'm sparring. I'm moving around. I mean, I had 2 young guys. One still trains, I know. Kid Evan Bennett, he became one of our instructors, and now makes me feel old because, I'm sure he's older than Jamie. So
what happens.
I would train with him and his younger brother Lane, and I would just have them beat me up before my first degree black belt test. I'd have these 2 teenage brothers, I would just fight the both of them and try to avoid getting my butt kicked. And They were good fighters. I mean, they were good for their age, but I would train with them. Sure. I would train with the other guys in the gym and not make an excuse of like, I'm not, because I feel like a lot of instructors wouldn't train with their students, maybe an ego thing, or maybe, whatever it may be. There's a gazillion reasons. But I would train with my students, and just, you're seeing punches come at you. You're doing some training. It's something. I always say, just demonstrating. People are like, how did you get so good? I'm like, how many demonstrations I've done on this technique? And most people, like, fast techniques wow people. They're the movie trailer. That's the wow factor. But I spend more time doing slow demonstrations so people can see the movement and get it down themselves. So I'm like, just doing that stuff as an upper level belt, you never beyond the basics. And it's really kind of laughable when you upper belts forget the beginner techniques. And that's something, I've done in the last 5 years at my Krav Maga gym, that we run a rotating curriculum, because it was one thing I found, that when students got into the advanced class, and now we were totally focused so much on the advanced curriculum because they hadn't done it, that just as an instructor, you're not teaching that advanced class because, hey, we're not spending time on bear hugs because we're on this, and we're not spending times on these chokes because they're beginner stuff. And now these advanced students aren't doing the basics. So our rotating curriculum, I think, really works, and I see our students are a lot more fresh with the technique, where there were some of them that, because we just didn't do it in class that often, that they would get caught in a drill like Bull in the Ring and get caught with something. Oh crap, I forgot that one. Well, yeah, you've been training for 3 years, but 3 years isn't 10. Yeah. You get better and better, and we can all get better. I always tell our kids, we need this. And I'm like, and by we, what is that? That's all of us. I'm pointing at me. We need this. So a 4th degree black belt is telling you, do this technique and do it this way because I need it. Mm-hmm. I'm not just trying to get you, little beginner, better. I'm trying I need this because it's a perishable skill. Sure. So I've always trained with people coming up through. Sometimes I used to train with my buddy Dennis Amato in Boston, but that was hard, to travel. And that was back on Nantucket, and even here, trying to get up and train with James Hermosa up in Colorado Krav Maga. Yeah. Try to get through Denver, forget it. You're like, how much time that takes out of your day as a school owner, as a business owner. Yeah. That can be really hard to do that. It's great when I get somebody that comes in the gym that's got experience. You've been in class with Lee.
Great guy too.
Great. He's got a ton of martial arts experience. So sometimes, you get better. Yeah. I told a student early on that I was only a yellow belt in Krav Maga. He's like, well, what happens when you teach me everything? And I'm like, well, maybe you can start teaching me. I'll send you to instructor training. Yeah. I want to say he lasted like a month. But his ego was like, well, I'm going to outrank you. And I'm like, I'll send you an instructor training. Yeah. I always need somebody to train with. So if you get better than me, I'll send you to instructor training.
Absolutely.
But, he didn't last that long. So Unfortunately, I'm like, hey, I would have been great.
Yeah.
Like anybody, that wants to get better, I'm like, I'm about getting you better so I have better people to train with.
Sure.
So.
A lot of fun. Yeah, I was always curious how, once you got to that upper belt, how you would train, but you make a good point in that you just, even the people that are learning, they'll remind you of something new and old in that session where you're just like, that's so valuable. Because it's like a continuing education. It's like,
yeah, you
use that muscle
so
or don't,
much
right?
teaching.
Yeah.
You learn a ton.
So what's it like training as a mom? Do you find yourself training your little one sometimes, or?
If he'll allow you.
Yeah.
With mine.
Yeah.
Your own kids are really
he likes to
hard
hit, but then if you do it back.
I don't have kids, so what it's like, both of you can answer this. What's it like trying to teach your kids how to do the same thing? Because, they're not necessarily in class sometimes, so.
Yeah.
Does it happen often? There's so many questions I have there.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Bryson's all the time. He's always trying to do stuff, and it's only when you get him into something and he's like, stop, and it's like, no, you know how to do it. Practice it.
Sure. What about you? You've got a few kids.
Yeah, it's really hard to train your own kids.
Is it?
Somebody's like anything else that they don't listen to you.
Right, because they're mom and dad. Right?
Like parents, I'm like, I've had more parents like, hey, I know how to fight, but my kid won't listen to you, so I'm bringing them here. I'm like, yeah, and it's a whole lot more fun when they're in a teen class with other teens than just being at home learning from dad.
Mm-hmm.
I was really lucky. My daughter and my son both did really well and were pretty well behaved with me. Sometimes I wouldn't acknowledge them as dad, and just try to keep that separate so they didn't have that feeling in the class. My stepsons were harder. They spent a lot of time out of class and like, you're out, and then fine, I'm out, I don't care. And eventually we had to have the conversation of like, look, you're in this class and you're getting it for free because I'm here, right? And there's other people paying, and your behavior and not sitting out like the other kids and then just leaving and going to the office because you're mad. It was, it was difficult. Yeah, and it's also now affecting the class. My Master Miller, like, he loved me because his boys liked me and they listened to me and they wouldn't listen to him.
Wow.
So you're like, it's really hard to coach your own kids. You hear that all the time. It's difficult to get them to, hey, brush your teeth and all this other advice as parents that we try to give our kids, and we're like, please listen. Right. Training your own kid is really hard. Sometimes it is better off.
Yeah, because I could see that where it's like they don't want to listen to you for the normal stuff. Why would they want to listen to you in an educational situation, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's Bryson weird. Can't wait to go to Coach John's class.
Right, and
then it's mine. He's like, yeah, whatever. It's my mom.
For those of you listening, John and Jamie are amazing with kids, and John is like, it is fun to watch him teach kids. I mean, he has a way with kids that, one, I'm jealous, and two, I had the skill. Because it's fun to watch you do that, man. That is really,
like
really
sometimes
awesome.
I feel like out there, sometimes you feel like completely alive and like giving there, and just, it is a different side of me. But on that floor, I am different than I am regularly. Like, I love teaching. I love teaching kids. Like, kids, are so rewarding, and it does take a knack. Like, it's hard to teach kids. I've had really good instructors that are like,
I've seen some
like,
instructors
no
just
way.
Suffer.
I've seen
can't handle kids.
People that like, whoa, you're a kids teacher. This is an adult class. Like, we don't want to be talked to that way. Like, I've seen some amazing kids teachers, and they have a hard time switching. So I guess I'm lucky, and I've had really good coaches along the line that I'm pretty good at both. I love kids, and people are like, how do you handle them? I'm like, I don't know. It's like sometimes I tell Jim, like, just do it, Jamie. Just what? What are you standing there looking at me like, well, I got to do this class? I'm like, go, just do it. You just do it. I don't know. Like, that's, where I feel alive. I'm like, like, okay, what? Do it. Like, I'll just, started doing it, and I love teaching the kids. Like, and you learn by trial and error, and like, oh, that's not working. Bail out.
Pivot.
you're crashing. Pull up, eject. Like, you're crashing. And, you know, a lot of times when you're learning, you're being straight like, wow, you let that class go down in flames instead of going,
yeah,
all right, let's pivot. And, you know, kids are easy. Like, you're having a bad time. Let's play a game.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I use games to reboot the kids of like,
they
okay, you guys are not, like, this is not going well. Like, let's reboot and start again and play a game. And, you know, most of the time our games have some sort of skill, if not coordination or strength. You know, you're doing something.
It's really cool. It's a sneaky way to get them to pay attention and have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And learn some skills or something that they don't even know.
Yeah, sometimes you come in off of a hard day.
Yeah.
And it's hard to walk in the door. The kids have the same thing. They had a tough day or they're just tired. And sometimes they come in, they're not ready to go, and just using a game to reboot them. Like, you're trying to get them going. You're like, all right, let's just play a game and get a little system reboot with these kids. But same thing with the adults. Like, they had a hard day and you're just getting in your own head. And something my wife says, like, when they come to the gym, they shouldn't come to get beaten up emotionally or like been like the coach is just too hard on you because, you know, maybe your wife was beating you up at home, maybe the boss was beating you up in the home, and life is tough enough. Like, come to the gym and be positive. Like, of course we want to correct people, but sometimes you're like, come on, Jamie, fix it. We've talked about this before. You know, good coaches can kind of read that of like, sometimes it's like they're just having a bad night and they're just in here. Yeah. Some people are better being like, hey, John, I'm here. And I'm like, okay, I hear you.
That's
You're
half
here.
the battle, though.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that good. I'm like, at least you made it. You're doing something.
Exactly.
And who cares if it's your best night?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think some of our fitness students sometimes, like, the people that are really good at showing up in the door, that's sometimes their biggest problem, is that they show up and they push it so hard that they don't slow down. Mm-hmm. They don't give their body a break, and they're just like, oh, I'm so sorry. And like, they're trying to hit that workout at 100%. I'm like, God, you don't need to hit it at 100% every single time to be in good shape. Killing yourself, I believe, has this, like, you're killing yourself. You're slowly killing. Yeah. It's that David Goggins, the Navy SEAL, and he's got a fantastic book. He actually had, I cannot remember the condition, but he was so tight from not stretching. Like, his muscles were being restricted. Like, he almost died. Like, emergency room, full on. I mean, his book is fantastic. Full on. Of course, I did the Audible, but and hearing it is different. I think, you know, I have his voice in my head. Yeah. I mean, he pushed his body so hard that the blood flow was being restricted or something. It was crazy. Like, what I had never heard of the condition before.
Wow. That
he was his own worst enemy because he never stretched. He never did any of this stuff, and he pushed himself. I mean, he did crazy ultra endurance marathon, 24-hour stuff. I mean, I think he's got the pull-up record, I believe. Maybe somebody's broken it, but this guy has, and his story, he lost a ton of weight. He might have been a high school dropout to get into the Navy, and he's like, I was studying on an exercise bike and reading. I mean, it's an amazing story of what this guy did. But then again, like, he got there and became a Navy SEAL, and now he's out and retired, and, you know, pretty much is an influencer, or, you know, what he's doing now with his books and his motivation, that he hurt himself because he wasn't taking the time that he needed to just, hey, maybe you don't need to push yourself every time for that full-on mental, like, okay, I'm going to push through. I can push through the pain. I can push through. You know, I always tell people sometimes your mind is what's going to carry you further than your body. Yeah. Like, that strong mind is going to carry you through. That's going to carry you out of the desert, whatever the circumstance is. When you're weak, I've seen a ton of extremely strong guys, but they don't have it mentally. They're just not mentally tough. They've got the physique. I mean, how many people just can't make it through? I'm just thinking of football because my stepson's super obsessed with football right now, and it was my first love of baseball. Well, I'd probably have to say it was my first love, but then I fell in love with football.
Mine was marching band. It's not a sport. I'm kidding. You both looked at me like, Wait a minute.
It is difficult. Their routines are difficult. My son was in marching band, and I'm like, I don't think I can do that choreography, and I definitely can't play an instrument. But you've let.
With footballs, or
Yeah, I mean, like how many people just aren't mentally tough to make it to the next level of from high school ball to college ball, from college to professional.
Right.
Like just the mindset. Like, because there's tons of physically gifted college football players that don't make it into the NFL. And, it might be physical, but some of it might just be the mental aspect, because sometimes we're our own worst enemy, that we beat ourselves up and we're negative and I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to lose the weight. You got to just be positive.
I've worked with a lot of professional athletes being in media and stuff like that. And the one thing one told me, I won't mention his name, he said that I should have listened to my coach more, because he wasn't doing all the stretching, or he wouldn't do the workout that week. He's like, sometimes you've got to listen to somebody to give you the advice. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but he's like, his body would have been in better shape if he had just listened to the coach saying, do more stuff for your health. Now, I don't want to get into the diet part with football players, because I've seen linemen eat 8,000 calories in a meal. And that's not an exaggeration. I've seen some really crazy diet stuff, but I love football. It's kind of a little tangent there, but listen to your coach is what I'm getting at. Listen to your coach.
Yeah, sometimes that's hard. Listen to your parents. They give good
listen to
advice.
your parents.
They've been a parent himself.
Yeah. So talking about journeys and stuff like that, I've been here just a month. In my last journey of martial arts stuff, I quit because I thought I had reached the end. Like, got a black belt. I'm done. I'm out. I've learned everything I can. And the answer is no, it wasn't. I think that's something that you really need to speak to people about, because you got to a black belt and you just kept going and kept going and kept going and still going. So
yeah, I want to do it for as long as I can.
The body can take you.
That, you have to train, and you can't get punched at 100%. Like nobody, like you got to curb down your, what level you're training at. But, I've seen so many people come through the journey and like they think they've got it down, or speaking to somebody that's never done it and they think they understand a particular martial art. Like, yeah, there's similarities to everything that we're doing in martial arts, but do you completely understand and grasp that system is really hard. Spending that time, and you get people through the journey, whatever it is. But sometimes we're trying to be efficient and fast in Krav Maga, and be easy to learn and work off your natural instincts. That people think like, "Well, I've got it," and you're like, you're into the beginner zone,
right?
Like you still have more to go, and there's more to learn. And I think that's like back to the rotating curriculum helps with some of those, retain some of those students, so they feel like they're learning new material, and that we can, combat their own ego by giving them a little bit more. But there's been some like, I got this down, and you're like, no, you're going to forget that technique because you haven't done it that many times.
Yeah.
And that whole, like, I got my black belt, I'm out, peace out. That's why we do a conditional.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to hand a black belt so that somebody's going to be like, peace out, see ya, I'm
that
done.
My ego.
Because you didn't really get
right.
that black belt's the beginning of the journey. And even like beginner, like, hey, I'm getting pretty good at this. And some people like, I got this down, maybe I'm going to go do this and that, or I'm just going to quit martial arts in general because I'm good now. I learned my little piece. I'm going to be good in 6 months to a year with a skill that's perishable.
Yeah.
That's why I think, Krav Maga being well-rounded and not specializing in any one thing, that we want to be well-rounded. And that takes time as well. I mean, that's why we try to get our beginner stuff and get people up to a high level fast and be aggressive with combatives and punching and getting away from people. But it takes so much more than that. And that journey is definitely an ongoing one. But it is really hard to combat people that, even as a beginner, that they think they've seen it all and they've done it. And you're like, not really.
Because the moment I stopped, that is when the decline of my skill set dropped. That very moment that I said I was done, I started declining. That's what I didn't realize, because I was young, cocky, and egotistical. It's easy for guys to be a bunch of young jerks.
It's like get good at one. I mean, you're going to be better if you really get good at a particular martial art versus the martial arts hopper that I've taken 7 martial arts and blah blah blah, and created my own style.
Have you ever considered that? I mean, in
Your own style?
creating your own style, or taking, who was on the podcast with you last? It was
Tony.
He's got like a dozen different things he's amazing at when it comes to the martial arts. I mean, is that a boon? Does that hold you back? I'm not going to say people like that aren't amazing, because it takes super discipline just to get one black belt and continue, right?
Yeah, to kind of be like, I'm Bruce Lee, and I'm going to come up with my own system.
Yeah, I mean
that's where I get like
right?
some people are like, well, we blend Krav Maga with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, Krav Maga wasn't meant to be blended with something. It's a complete self-defense and fighting system, and we're always trying to expand of what's out there and do more ground. But Krav Maga's always had ground in it, but expand it. There's more people out there doing groundwork. Krav Maga wants to expand to what are the threats out there.
Mm-hmm.
But to say, you're like, I'm going to blend Krav Maga with this and that, and you're like, it doesn't. I mean, I think each individual instructor can have their own flair on a system and their own take, maybe. But to go, I'm going to do my own system, I'm like, Krav Maga just needs to be blended. It's what we do. We borrow from things, and to say it's your own system because you maybe took something from BJJ and Muay Thai concept that Krav Maga is not currently doing, and call it your own system, I think that's,
I agree.
you're just looking for...
Krav Maga has a set of principles, right, that it follows. So anything that you bring in, right, it should
fit within the principles. To be in the system, it's got to fit with the principles. Mm-hmm. If I'm doing something outside of it, it might be in a fight class usually, and you're going like, hey, guys, this is not Krav Maga curriculum. This is borrowed. This is other stuff out there in the fight realm, BJJ, boxing, whatever it may be, where it is a little bit more of a sport, and it's coming from, it might not work for Jamie. Mm-hmm. It was even like the slip technique. I was working with Jamie. I'm like, gosh, your punch is a lot harder to slip and make this technique work against you than somebody that's my height or a little bit taller than me. Like trying to slip underneath her punch is like, I would not. I would do this. I'm like, but I'm trying to make it work because I didn't want to, she's already got that Hobbit problem, and that.
No offense.
No, I know. She makes fun of herself and calls herself a Hobbit.
I'm very short in stature, so I just do it.
Embrace it. She embraces it, Josh.
They're just short, and so am I.
Okay, well, I'm not tall for a guy, so.
But it's hard. Like, oh, I can't work with you. Like, hey, try to make it work, and it makes you better.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm gonna work. I probably wouldn't try to slip this way against Jamie for real, but hey, you're working against somebody different size, and you get that concept of like that picture in your head. I was like, you got to see the punch come at you. You got to see those movies come at you over and over to get good. And like, it was good to train that with her for 5-10 minutes. It was good stuff.
You always get it. Something I always like training against different people because I don't know what I'm going to get with each one, and that's what I'm waiting to find out. Right?
Yeah.
Because I cannot wait for that fast jab to come in from a really petite person, and then just comes in and it's lightning quick, and you're like, crap.
We can do it real quick.
No. The one thing I don't want to lose here is teeth. You can black eyes, broken nose. I don't care. It's just teeth are expensive.
They certainly are. Wear a mouthpiece.
We have mouth. Yeah, I was just saying mouthpiece.
Red gear. Fight dentist, best mouth guard I've had that we got in the pro shop. The fight dentist is worth the extra $10.
Right, to save yourself $1,000 later.
I'm like, I've chipped teeth just doing demonstrations, or I had somebody, I was talking and they need the pad, and I chipped a tooth. Like mouthpiece is great to just wear the entire time.
Get the gear
when you're training, because those teeth are expensive. But this has been a little update on the journey of Josh as a really beginner student in Krav Maga. He's previous martial artist coming back, and Jamie being intermediate student, and of course I've been doing it for a bit now and think I can always get better as my my take on things. So I'm like, just get a little better, and I can be a better human being. Just ask my wife. I've got plenty of things to work on.
What?
I did blame something on Josh.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because you were being creepy. I mean, we were doing the creepy video, and Jenny was like, "You got really creepy on that video." I'm like, "Oh, did she not like me rubbing Jamie's neck or shoulder or something?" But
I was coaching him. I told him to be creepy.
And
I was
like,
coaching. I was
told
doing my coaching.
Jenny was like, "That was really creepy." I'm like, "That was Josh.
Yeah.
Josh is the producer. I was just doing what Josh did."
Producer. Now I'm being called the producer.
Josh produced that video. I had nothing to do with it. And I'm like, good thing she didn't see the one you deleted. That one you like. I always tell people, like, Jamie needs more coaching and acting than she does in Krav Maga, because even today's video, she almost friggin' blasted me when we were just doing that little intro. But she let me be creepy for too long, and I'm like, hey, I can see the text messages coming in from Braden on your computer there. Emoji smile face. And she's here with Coach John rubbing her neck, and I'm like, this is getting awkward, Jamie. And your fiance is texting you. Are you going to go into the next line of this video, or are you just going to let me rub your neck? I think I should charge her for that neck.
Hey,
rub.
it's a testament to your
technically
training
massage.
that she went right into Krav.
Yes, absolutely.
Every time she went right into Krav, we had to be like, Jamie, you can't do that right away. And you kept giving me this look like,
Come on, I just want to blast him.
I just want to kick him in the face. Can I do that?
And that's where, just start, and you're going to get better and better if you just start. And it doesn't matter if you feel awkward in the class. Just start the journey. Everybody in a good gym is there to help you along that journey, and it's just starting and slow and consistent of getting better, because you guys have both made great progress so far. It's just walking in the door and doing it. So we'll update with these guys here soon in the future, but look for an episode with my instructor, John Whitman, is going to be on the show here coming up really soon. So thanks again for joining. This is John Hallett with the John Hallett Podcast. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks a ton for listening.